Hey, it's Adam here, and you're watching The Culture Hack, where we're talking about how to create engaged workspaces that unlock the potential of your teams and drive your business forward in ways you've never seen. So stay tuned. Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Culture Hack. I am super excited because today we have Stan Peake. He is the co-founder and director of leadership development at FSQ. Welcome, Stan.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here. You guys are culture experts, so I know we're going to have a great chat on culture and all things business and entrepreneurship today.
Fantastic. I love it. But before we get started, tell us about FSQ.
Yeah, FSQ is a multidisciplinary consulting company. Myself and four co-founders come together with a set of disparate but equal skill sets in marketing, leadership and coaching, financial acumen, financial literacy, as well as sport. I wouldn't say governance, but consulting for sport organizations. In the world of sports, they still take money for business, but they don't consider themselves a business a lot of times. They really want to speak from someone who's lived in the trenches. So my business partner, Matt, handles that. I handle the leadership and coaching. Co-founder Nelson handles the financial literacy, and our CEO and co-founder Taryn handles the marketing.
Okay, amazing. So it sounds like a really talented group of people come together for a real important work. That's amazing. And that's what we're here to talk about today is engagement. I mean, you deal with leadership and development and coaching. You deal with entrepreneurs, leaders of large organizations. Like, what does engagement come to mean to you?
It's a great question, and engagement happens in many forms. And what we find is the first person we have to work with engagement on is the leader who brings us in. You mentioned the different skill sets that we have at FSQ, and really they all serve to help people become better leaders, help them solve some of the complex challenges they're facing, whether it be to grow their business or to lift the capability of their teams. But it's important the leader becomes engaged, and that starts with mission alignment. Making more money will only fuel someone for so long. So the leaders who are in charge of the organization, the purpose has to be bigger than them, and it really has to be something that matters regardless of how much they're making, because that is more of a lasting form of motivation that will help them go the distance. The second piece of engagement is really around them, and I hate using hierarchical terms, below them, but people that report to those leaders. And I would define engagement for the entire rest of the organization as discretionary effort. So people have a choice how hard they want to work. And if you rule with an iron fist and say, get your butt in your desk by 8 and stay there till 5, people will do it. And they will do what you say. They will work just hard enough not to get fired. But if you can compel people, if you can align people around a high-minded objective, the purpose, the vision, the values of the organization, the important work you do, then you bring forward people's passion, their commitment, their creativity. And to me, that is all discretionary effort, which is a clear and obvious sign of engagement versus I'm trading time for money.
I love that. When you see team members give 150% to it, like way more than you could ever ask, and they choose to give it, that is an incredible thing to behold and to see when it happens. But getting there is easier said than done. I mean, as I'm sure you know. So I'm curious, have you come across any specific challenges or obstacles that your leaders that you're coaching or have had to deal with or have had success overcoming?
By all means, especially in large organizations, culture sounds easy to define, but the nuances and the actual implementation of a great culture is about as complex as your background is, at least for a computer nerd a noob like me. But the point is, with all that complexity, it really comes down to still a simple but hard to execute skill set, and that's communication. You're not going to get everybody engaged unless we make the intentional time, effort, and find the methodology to get across the organization through all the different channels to all the different working team members what we're doing, What are our priorities? Why do they matter? And how does that actually land for the individual? If Adam decides to work his butt off, how does he benefit? If Adam goes the extra mile, what's in it for him beyond a paycheck? It's really important that people understand what we call the resonance. Basically, it has to matter at the individual level. That doesn't mean we go to 10,000 employees and ask them what they want and then have 10,000 different ways of doing things. But it does mean that leaders have conversations with their teams and get to know what matters to their teams and align, basically what we call mission alignment. Here's what we're accomplishing. Here's why it benefits everybody. Here's how it benefits you. Here's how, if you do a little bit more, here's how it benefits the team. It's really two-way alignment.
That's, that it sounds so simple when you put it like that, right? Just ask the question. Right?
But we
and
all have stuff to do on our desk, right? Even leaders, they have a set of deliverables, and email is the biggest time suck of them all. And we think that we're communicating over email, but a lot of times we're not. I'm not against email. Obviously, we rely on email, but for most people, email can encompass 80% of their day, and that gets in the way of real communication. And a set of to-dos is going to get in the way of real communication. So it sounds simple. But the challenge is all of these cultural initiatives tend to happen over and above your day job. That's why the rubber hitting the road is hard.
You're right. And, you really need to turn up your empathy skills when you're having those conversations. And if you just, got your butt kicked in a meeting, or you've dealt with a bunch of stuff, or you're thinking about the 20 things you got to do, and you've got a list of groceries to get on the way home, and yet here you have to make space for this person and be completely attentive. And so, do you have any advice? Like, how do you clear clear the noise and just be?
It's a great question, and really it comes down to prioritizing what matters, which again sounds simple, but let's take a different analogy. I'm a big football fan. Right now it's NFL playoffs, and a typical football team, they'll do their tactical and their physical preparation for a game. Okay, you don't have to understand football to really understand this analogy. We're trying to win. We're trying to be more physical and beat the other team. So obviously the players would spend time in the weight room. Now, if they spend all of their time in the weight room, all their time in the track, all their time working on their physical, then they're going to go and be a physically more capable team, but they're not strategically prepared, and they don't see all the different stuff the other team's trying to do, and they might have a major disadvantage. Whereas if they spend all their time in the film room studying the tendencies of their team, they're going to know exactly what's going to happen, but they're going to be physically unable to stop the team because they're physically, weaker, slower, inferior. So in that example, it needs to be both. You need your physical and your tactical preparation. No different in business. We need to prioritize getting stuff done, but especially for leaders, we have to view the manner in which we contribute value differently. When we're climbing the corporate ladder, getting stuff done, contributing to the team, that's how we get measured. But when we're in a leadership position, it's not what you do, it's what gets done on your watch. So we need to carve out intentional time that doesn't feel like we're hitting the to-do list. And if we can get in front of the team, remove obstacles, clarify deliverables, hold them accountable, and support them, then we have this effect of more getting done. We become a multiplier in our business as opposed to being a bottleneck in our business.
I've never thought of it as a multiplier before. That's really interesting. And, you've kind of got into it, but as we're looking into the future, I think business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs, more and more we're buying into this idea that engagement or culture is actually an important part of a successful business. If you want to be successful, if you want to be the best, if you want to be sought after, whatever it is you want to be, you've got to have a team that loves to be there and wants to show up and kick ass. So as we see that shift in behavior and looking forward to the future, hybrid teams, all these types of things, have you seen any changes or patterns, or do you have any predictions for what might be coming down the pipe?
I do. I see a shift already in the core competencies required to be a successful leader. There's the old cliche that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I like to replace that with a new cliche. Culture is the breakfast. If you really invest in culture, that becomes fuel for the organization. If you do it properly, it's not, do we invest in culture or do we work on strategy? No, a strong culture is the enabler of that strategy, which means at the individual leader level, yes, you got to be a tactician. You have to understand your strategic initiatives. You have to understand finance. You have to be connected to the overarching, strat plan. However, it really comes down to, instead of management skills and strategies, leaders need to become more of a coach. They need to start understanding those communication skills, empathy, listening, asking great questions, alignment. Because if they can do that, it's not what's written on the piece of paper that is the strategic plan, it's how are we executing? And we both know that an ounce of execution is worth more than a pound of planning. So we really want to bring that plan to life. It's a shift into coaching skills. That's how leaders can help their teams in that transition, and live a great culture and reap the benefits, including cash flow, that go along with it.
Interesting. So we all have to be better humans, almost treat each other like people. And I think quite often when we work together with somebody every day, we start to see each other as just like work units, right? It's transactional. I need this, you need that. Okay, right? But actually taking that moment and developing that relationship. After all, we spend more time with people we work with than people we live with, right?
100%. And let me overstate the obvious, that the job of leadership has changed, clearly. And the greater the advancements in technology, the more the role of a leader has to take on more and more human elements, because there's tech for everything. But if someone could do it on their own, there would be no need for a leader. The fact that there is a need for a leader means that leader has to be there to meet their team where they're at. And that becomes more and more like a coach, less and less like a corporate manager or individual contributor.
That's really interesting. And that as I imagine the future of my business, if it were to grow to 10, 20, 30 people, whatever, I imagine a point where less operations, because I think the natural progression is that the owner stays in operations and gets stuck there. But what I kind of imagine is that the reverse, a withdrawal, where it becomes my job is most important, to just kind of show up at meetings randomly, see how people are doing, make sure that ear to the ground is doing well, just be that ear, that coach. So it's really gratifying to hear you say that. So means hopefully that we're onto something.
You are onto something. And I wouldn't say if, I'd say when you grow to 15, 30, however many people. And it brings up an excellent point, that basically the evolution of an entrepreneur, of a founder, is not the same for everybody. But one thing that is the same is the importance of self-awareness. You have a set of skills that help Enta grow, and it'll grow to a point until you become the bottleneck, you and Caitlin. At that point, the two of you need to be self-aware enough to realize, where are our skills accelerating the growth of the company, and where are our skills hindering the growth of the company? And that should really inform your hiring, your technology, you name it, because really every founder, when you get to a stage of growth, has to understand how they get out of their own way and bring people around them to fill their own gaps to accelerate the next stage of growth.
I love it. And I feel like we could just talk shop all day, and we often do, Stan. But I think I'm just going to sum it up with the culture is the breakfast. I think that's a good way to kind of sum everything up. So Stan, as always, I really appreciate your time. You've got so many cool insights, and I love the football analogies, even for people out there who maybe don't watch football. But I really appreciate it, and thanks so much for coming on.
A pleasure. Thank you so much. And I really enjoy what you're putting out there. I love learning from the other great leaders you have on here. We're all learning. We should all be students of the game. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Hey, thanks for watching The Culture Hack. Do you want to chat culture and engagement? Give us a call and come on the show.